Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to crack the code on a hidden operating system that dictates, well, almost everything we do. We usually think of our daily choices as these isolated, independent decisions, right? But the truth is, human behavior is actually driven by this invisible web of mathematical rules.
So, let me ask you something. Are you playing a game right now? You probably don't think so. You're just sitting there, taking in this explainer, minding your own business. But game theory actually suggests otherwise. See, this isn't just some niche branch of abstract math reserved for economists in ivory towers. It's the fundamental underlying framework of our everyday decisions. Every single time you merge into traffic, negotiate a salary, or even just figure out who has to take out the trash, you are a player in a game.
Princeton economist Avinash Dixit hits the nail on the head here. He calls this concept thinking about thinking. Think of it this way. If you're a player in a game, your outcome heavily depends on what everyone else does. You can't just pick a strategy in a vacuum. You've got to recognize that other people are thinking about your choices, and in turn, you have to take into account their thinking about your thinking about their thinking. Yeah, it's this continuous strategic loop.
Which brings us to the core definition. Game theory is, simply put, the study of strategic interaction. It kicks in whenever one person's actions affect others, and those actions bounce right back to affect them. Take the CEO of Coca-Cola, for example. They can't just set the price of a soda based on whatever profit they feel like making. They have to anticipate exactly how Pepsi is going to respond to that price. And Pepsi? Well, they're making their move based on what they think Coke will do next. It's just a constant strategic dance.
Now, you can kind of split our whole world into two distinct buckets: cooperative and non-cooperative games. In a cooperative game, say a labor union negotiating with a business, players can communicate, they build high trust, and they form binding, enforceable agreements to maximize their joint payoff. But in a non-cooperative game, like competing firms in a free market, there are absolutely no enforceable contracts. You act individually, driven by pure self-interest, and usually with pretty limited trust. And whether that trust is there or not, that completely changes how we play the game.
And honestly, that lack of trust leads us straight into the most famous behavioral trap in game theory, the prisoner's dilemma. This was dreamed up back in the 1950s at the Rand Corporation, and it perfectly illustrates a frankly terrifying reality. Rational, self-interested human beings will frequently make choices that are collectively totally irrational and damaging.
Let's walk through the stakes here. Picture this. You and an accomplice get busted and put in separate interrogation rooms. You can't communicate at all. The police offer you both a deal. If you both just stay silent, meaning you cooperate with each other, you each get just 1 year in prison. That is your absolute best collective outcome. But if you stay silent and your partner testifies against you, they walk completely free, and you get slapped with 3 years. Because you literally cannot trust the other person to stay quiet, your most rational, dominant strategy is to protect yourself and testify. But here's the kicker. Since you both think this way, you both testify and you both get 2 years. By trying to be perfectly rational, you both end up worse off. Wild, right?
For the math fans out there, the formal breakdown of this proves that defecting is what's called a strictly dominant strategy. It creates a Nash equilibrium, which is basically a state where no player can improve their situation by changing their mind all by themselves. The math literally proves that without a mechanism for trust, betrayal is just inevitable.
All right, let's move into Section 1, Hacking the Grading Curve.
Now, we aren't just equations on a page, right? Take this incredibly relatable real-world scenario. University students at Hamilton College and Johns Hopkins realized they were trapped in one of these non-cooperative games. Their professors gave the classes a crazy high-stakes ultimatum. If no student takes the final exam, everyone receives an A. But if even one student takes it, anyone who didn't receives a 0. Just think about the sheer pressure there. If you trust your classmates and skip the test, but just one overly ambitious student sneaks in and takes it, your grade is entirely destroyed. To survive this, these students had to engage in some world-class thinking about thinking. By mapping out the sequence of decisions, they realized that acting individually would lead straight to that classic non-cooperative Nash equilibrium, meaning everyone would just panic and take the test out of fear. So what did they do? They literally transformed the rules of the game. At Johns Hopkins, the students organized an ironclad boycott. They turned it into a cooperative game by forming a binding agreement among themselves. Nobody took the exam. And guess what? Every single student got an A. They beat the math by building mutual trust.
Which brings us to Section 2, the ultimate trap.
That classroom boycott? Absolutely beautiful micro-level victory. But what happens when we scale this up? Like, what happens when the players are literally every nation on Earth? Climate change is essentially a massive multiplayer prisoner's dilemma, but with a really terrifying twist. It's a much harder dilemma. In the classic game, the prisoners know exactly how many years they'll get. With climate change, the timelines are completely unknown and the exact payoffs of cooperation are uncertain. Plus, there's no global police force to enforce environmental contracts. A country might genuinely want to cut emissions, but they know the immediate economic benefits of polluting are huge. They fear that if they cut back, other nations will just keep polluting and steal their market share. That uncertainty makes international trust incredibly difficult to pull off.
So, is there any hope? Let's look at Section 3, the evolution of cooperation.
If the math constantly pushes us toward betrayal, and massive global issues like climate change lack any real enforcement, how has humanity even survived this long? Are we just doomed to backstab each other forever? Thankfully, no. The escape hatch here is actually time. You see, game theory changes completely when games aren't just played once, but are repeated over an unknown number of interactions. This brings us to a revolutionary concept discovered by political scientist Robert Axelrod. He ran these massive computer tournaments, pitting different game theory strategies against each other in a repeating prisoner's dilemma. And the undisputed champion that won time and time again? A remarkably simple strategy called tit for tat. It literally proved to be the foolproof mathematical key to human cooperation.
So here's how tit for tat actually works. It only has 4 super basic rules. First, be nice. Literally just never be the first person to defect. Second, be retaliating. If your opponent betrays you, you immediately betray them back in the very next round. Third, be forgiving. Once they go back to cooperating, you forgive them and return to cooperation yourself. And fourth, be non-envious. Don't obsess over scoring higher than the other person, just focus on the mutual benefit. Axelrod's tournaments proved something profoundly hopeful. Even a totally selfish player can best pursue their own self-interest simply by deciding to be nice and playing tit for tat.
We've seen the mathematical traps that surround us every day, right? From police interrogation rooms to university classrooms to global climate summits. And we've seen how communication, trust, and simple strategies like tit for tat can actually hack the system. You are a player in a vast, interconnected network of strategic interactions. This hidden operating system of human behavior is running all around you all the time. So I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you negotiate a raise, the next time you have an argument, or even the next time you just have to share the road with a complete stranger, how will you play your next game?